out comes Joe Montana. My first thought, Trey, the first second he ran out, I'm like, he doesn't look real hurt. You know, exactly. That was like that. And I went to Bill. I go, Bill, he looks great. Bill, he gave me the, sorry.
Overcoming the odds, rewriting the playbook, delivering under pressure. The MVPs of small business lead their teams to victory all year long. And Visa is proud to provide playmakers everywhere with more tools to help grow their business and help them achieve even greater success. Because the more people we can empower, the more we all win. Visa, a network working for everyone. Hey everybody, what's up? Trey Wingo. Welcome into another episode of Half Forgotten History, and this episode is sort of my own personal history. My guest this week is a guy that I've known since 1978, and I've hated him most of the time. That's not true. I've been very jealous of him most of the time. I was a short, unathletic dork. He was everything and went on to have a Hall of Fame career in the NFL. And how he got there is absolutely remarkable. I'm talking, of course, about the Prince of the Post Road, the King of King Acres, the Sultan of Sound Beach Avenue, Hall of Famer and fellow Greenwich resident, Steve Young. My God. Steve, first of all, I think if someone looked at your career from the helicopter view, they would say...
First of all, don't we have to cover that we're like, we have history and that we grew up in the same place and we know the same people and we've been joking with each other for 15 years on air. And do we have to cover that at all, or does everybody know all
No, let's start. We'll start with the Pope of the Post Road, the Sultan of Sound Beach, the Zarminder of Zacchaeus Mead Lane, Hall of Famer Steve Young, who we went to the same high school. But Steve, I always tell people, we were in the same building, but we were in different schools. Okay?
That's probably right. But Janice, look, I went to, did I go to Eastern with Janice? I can't remember.
Yeah. Janice is my wife. So Janice and Steve and I are in high school together.
So talk about yin and yang, you and Janice, because she's the smartest person I ever met. So I don't know how that worked out.
I dumbed down that equation. So it's a good balance. So yes, we've gone back and forth together. And for many times, by the way, I would say to Steve, hey, we went to high school together. He's like, what? Get out.
I loved it. It was great.
It took you a while. It took you a while to realize.
It took me a while to kind of connect, but once we connected, it was all good. Especially with your wife. I knew her when she was little, so it was great.
Oh yeah. Okay, so now.
Okay, enough of that.
Enough of that. Let's start here. If someone had looked at just a helicopter view of Steve Young's career, they'll say, well, he went to BYU. It's a passing school, so of course he was going to go on and have great success in the NFL and be a two-time MVP, Super Bowl MVP, first ballot Hall of Famer. But that was not how it went down. I mean, You had to fight for everything, every step of the way in your career.
Trey, it's important to recognize that when I was in high school, what they do now with kids who have any kind of an arm is that they quickly give them all of the tutoring that's necessary. And throwing a football is not intuitive. Maybe for some. Maybe someone picks it up and goes, oh, I know how to throw it like a screwball and have it come out that way so I can get some more power behind it. But most kids spin it, right? Yeah. They go, oh, it needs to spiral. I'm going to spin it. And that's how I threw it in high school. I was terrible. I couldn't throw anything. That wasn't until college. I got recruited by BYU because I could run around and because they didn't know where they were going to put me. I wanted to play quarterback. But at the time when I left high school at Greenwich High, there's our Greenwich High friends. They're like, Steve Young went pro? I didn't see that.
Just so people understand, okay, like Steve was an amazing running quarterback. He completed, we looked this up, 41% of his throws in high school. 41% completion wouldn't get you a JUCO offer these days.
That's like Tim Tebow's throwing motion. Like, how does he do it? It's amazing. How did I ever complete 41%? That's a miracle.
So
one thing is I get to BYU. I remember getting I showed up to the locker room and they had the depth chart on a piece of paper, every position, and a quarterback. Of course, back then BYU was the only throwing school. That in Miami and maybe Stanford a little bit. So if you wanted to be in a pro-style offense, you had 3 schools to go to. So all these kids from all over the country would try to get into BYU to play quarterback. And at the time, Jim McMahon was the quarterback. Gifford Nielsen had just left. Mark Wilson had just left. Guys that went pro, right? So 3 guys in a row going pro, some in the first round. So here I am. I don't know how to throw the ball yet.
Yeah.
Like, because no one taught me in Greenwich High School, and I've been 41%, but man, I could run. And so they said, do you want to try to play quarterback? And I said, yeah, 8th string. I looked on the depth chart, there's my name. It wasn't alphabetical. Like, I was 8th string. I thought it might have been alphabetical. Maybe it's just, Y, and, that's why I was at the end. But the truth is, it went from Jim McMahon to, Jim Kimball, to Eric Kosmarczyk, Mark Howgo. I remember all the names. And so I started playing, essentially being the scout team quarterback, and they all ran the wishbone or the veer option, New Mexico, Utah, Pac-12, Pac-10 back then, and so I would be the quarterback and I would just butcher the BYU defense. And so I got to be known a little bit, but then about, I'm going to say Halloween time, there was 3 JV quarterbacks I used to rotate. Andy Reid was our coach.
Wow. I'd forgotten that part. Andy Reid was our
JV coach.
Wow.
And we played at Air Force, the JV, and it was my turn to start. And right before the game, Andy came into me and he said, hey, Mark Halgo's dad flew in from Minnesota. And so I just feel like maybe he should play because his dad's here. I'm like, no, that doesn't work. Andy and I still laugh about that. Like, no, that doesn't work. But anyway, about Halloween, Doug Scoville, who was the offensive coordinator for BYU, very famously, because we were, you go back to those record books, oh my gosh, today you'd be like, oh yeah, that seems like a little bit more like today, but this is 30, 40 years ago. So
nobody was throwing it the way BYU was throwing it.
Nobody. And we were doing it. We were beating people 83-7. It was crazy.
Yeah.
So anyway, I ran into Doug Scoville, and I didn't know how he knew my name because I'd never talked to him before. And he says, oh, by the way, I don't coach lefties.
So he ruled you out. Is this the offensive coordinator of BYU? He ruled you out because he didn't want a lefty throwing the football.
I don't coach lefties. And he walked away. And I was like,
okay.
I don't know what to say about that. I should have been more offended. I was shocked and I didn't know what to do about it. But in the interim, what he doesn't realize is that when Phil Mickelson learned to play golf watching his dad play righty, so he played lefty and copied each other, that's what I did with Jim McMahon. And so Jim McMahon, who, as wild and crazy as you think Jim McMahon is, technically, as a quarterback, as technically sound as anyone who ever played, drop back, bounce up, balance, position, throwing motion, everything was like perfect. Even today he would be perfect. And so I copied him, and I finally realized, you don't throw the ball spinning it out of your hand. You throw it like a screwball, coming like this, and your finger is the last thing. And when you figure that out, the timing of it, all of a sudden, instead of spinning it because you can't put anything on it, you can get behind it. And all of a sudden, it's like, oh my, and I can put it right there and right there. And all of a sudden, this talent that I never knew I had. Yeah. But I'm lefty. So what do I do? So they moved me at the end of the season. Lavelle Edwards, the head coach, came in and said, look, Steve, you're super fast. I'd run the 40 in I don't want to over exaggerate it, but 4.3 something. You
moved. You moved. There's no question.
I could fly. And but I want to play quarterback. And now especially I want to play quarterback because I figured out how to throw the ball.
Yeah.
And he said, nah, Steve, you're not going to play. There's 15 guys in front of you. Just play defense. Tom Holmoe, who I played with at the in 49ers, now is the AD at BYU. He'll teach you the ropes on defensive back. Am I going too long, Trey, or do you want
No, this is good. This is good.
So he goes up, and I start working out backpedaling with the defense. And looking at the quarterbacks, like, I don't want to be here. Get me out of here. And in the interim of winter ball, Doug Scoville takes the head coaching job at San Diego State.
Yeah.
In comes Ted Tollner from USC to run the offense. And after practice, the quarterbacks would hang around and throw. And so I would hang around and throw. And Ted Tollner goes, hey, why aren't you playing quarterback? He just happened to watch me throw. He goes, I go, well, because I'm lefty. Yeah. And Ted Tollner goes, what the hell? What? Who cares if you're lefty?
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
But I told him that's what Doug Scoville told me. And so he goes, well, that's stupid. He went in, talked to Lavelle, and Lavelle says, Ted, he's got 10 guys in front of him. He goes, I just got a feeling for this kid. Give me 2 weeks of the 4-week spring ball. Give me 2 weeks. At the end of 2 weeks, if it's not working out, we'll ship him over to defense. And at the end of the 2 weeks, I was backing up Jim McMahon.
That's incredible, right?
That's
incredible. So
2
then,
weeks.
Yeah, and the first time I remember seeing you, we were at a party somewhere in Greenwich because you were a year ahead of me, and there was a sideline shot of the Holiday Bowl, that massive comeback against Texas A&M, and there was a shot of Steve, and we all joke because like you said,
boy, what is that?
That's the only time he's going to be on the field or on our TV is because of that, and then of course it just exploded. Now, obviously, Tolner coming in made a big deal, but there was another quarterback that had he committed to BYU, it might have set you back immensely.
Sean Salisbury.
Sean Salisbury.
He was the number one recruit nationwide.
Yep.
Mormon kid from Southern California. And so they're like, if we sign Sean Salisbury, he'll start first day, Yeah. And I was set to start. I was set, like, I'm ready. I'm taking over Jim McMahon. What are you talking about? I'm here, Yeah. But the way it was, I had not played. And I hadn't been able to show people what I could do. And so I think if Sean Salisbury signs, he's the big star. He's going to get a chance. Now, if Sean Salisbury would have sucked, maybe I would have had my shot. But these are the kind of things, these binary forks in the road where one fork, you're never going to play again. Another fork, you have another shot. And that's why my dad's Hall of Fame speech in Canton was, and he was a long way from Canton. But the thing that people don't realize, Trey, is that when you don't know how to throw a football, how can you play quarterback? And the miracle and the amazing thing about it is I figured it out. And once I did, that's when things you couldn't stop me because I could run and I could throw it. And not many guys could do both.
And by the way, listen, Sean chose USC and went on to play and did great. But, it's amazing to think, if he had gone to BYU, things might have been completely different for you.
I agree with you on that one. I agree with you. It was a big deal when he chose USC. And I was relieved, of course.
Yeah. So then you go on and you explode. You had that amazing year, 1983, and it all worked out. You set all the records, and then everyone thinks you're going to be the number one pick in the draft. But you decide to go to the USFL, which was a startup league, and they offered you. I remember the headline, "The $40 Million Man." They offered you a $40 million contract in the '80s, which was unheard of.
It was more than Magic and Gretzky and all put together. Yeah. And it was just it was a great, not a gimmick, but it was $40 million over the next 40 years, right?
Exactly. We'll get it to you.
Look, Sam Weiss, the head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals, came out and worked me out. And after the workout said, look, we have the number one pick. We're going to take you. Yeah. And Kenny Anderson was the quarterback. And I was so young. I wasn't, I was more comfortable when, John Hadel came up with Don Klosterman, who had run the Rams for many years, and Sid Gilman. And if anyone knows back then, Sid Gilman was the father. He's Bill Walsh's.
Correct. Bill Walsh got most of his stuff from Sid Gilman in the old AFL and the San Diego Chargers.
And Mike Holmgren, now we skipped over Mike Holmgren, was my quarterback coach, my offensive coordinator at BYU, my junior and senior year. So Mike Holmgren knew Sid and said, look, Steve, Sid's the genius. You can go down there and play with my buddy Gordon Hudson, was my tight end, All-American tight end. Gary Zimmerman, who ended up being in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, was a rookie tackle from Oregon. And it was LA, and we were living in Manhattan Beach, and I went down there for the recruiting trip and everything. I'm like, I'm going to do it. And Reggie White, who was my buddy from the Hula Bowl, he and I decided to do it. He's going to go to the Memphis Showboats, so I'm going to go to the Express. So Reggie and I built a friendship right out of that, and my dad helped him get his agent, and Reggie and I have been dear friends ever since until his passing. So, those are the kind of things that we were doing. We thought, look, we'll go play, and we'll play. We'll watch Ken Anderson, and when we're done or whatever happens, we'll be free agents. We can go anywhere. And so Reggie and I were like, that sounds like a great deal. And it worked out until the NFLPA negotiated our rights away and had a supplemental draft. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers took me number one. I was like, wait a second. I told my dad, who's a lawyer, Dad, can they do that? They just negotiated for everybody. You're dead.
Yeah. It sounded great. And then, of course, lawyers.
I will tell you the football I played at the LA Express, and this is not personal, but just the football that I saw was better than the football that I saw in Tampa Bay.
Well, listen, there's that famous game between you guys and the Houston Gamblers with Jim Kelly that was never recorded. I mean, it was supposed to be. It was a black. That's the best. Yeah, that's the best game that no one ever saw is what everyone says about that game. All right, we'll take a quick break right here. We'll come back and talk about the next thing that you had to overcome in getting into play in the NFL. Stay with us with Hall of Famer Steve Young. Starbucks Triple Shot Energy, extra strength coffee beverage in a can. That Starbucks coffee you love, ready to drink. 4 core flavors, of course, as you know: vanilla, dark roast, cafe mocha, and caramel. And now they're offering 2 zero sugar options as well, black and vanilla. Energy to do you for the things that you want to do. Like for me, gearing up for a great guest and an interview on a podcast, watching the games, or getting ready to kick somebody's butt on the golf course, which happens a lot. What gives you energy? Find your Starbucks Triple Shot Energy online or at your local store. All right, back with, I always say my high school quarterback. I didn't play, but we were in the same high school, so you were my high school quarterback.
That's right.
Steve Young. So the USFL, you went there, and obviously the lawyers, and it imploded, and suddenly all these investors, we didn't really have the money we thought we had. So you are taken number 1 in the supplemental draft by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And people should know this was the epicenter of Tampa Bay's suckiness. I think they were in the middle of 12 straight, at least 10 lost seasons. Yeah. It was a disaster. So you had to prove yourself to get on the field at BYU after really being a running quarterback in high school. You get there, you set the record, you go to the USFL, that falls apart, and now you find yourself just at a franchise that was not going anywhere.
It was tough. And the thing I will tell you, James Wilder, Jimmy Giles, Ron
they had some
Helton,
players. Yeah.
They not only, but they had some tough human beings.
Yeah.
And it just shows you that if you don't have the correct infrastructure, if you don't have a sense of, a spirit of a place that creates, environments where people can be successful and give them a sense of accountability and do that from the top, it was mired. So when I say that the Tampa Bay Buccaneer football was worse than the LA Express, it's not about the players.
No, it's
the guys
about the organization.
House. I mean, we had some great. And James Wilder's the toughest human being I ever. I mean,
running back out of Missouri.
I can't tell you how many times I just looked at him, what he went through. I'm like, that guy's the toughest human being I ever met. And then I met Rennie Lott, and so maybe the two of them. But I think that for me, Tampa Bay was the place where I needed to figure out a way to show that I could play. Okay, we're not going to win. I see that it's going to be tough, but I got to go play something where get a spark. And so I gave every ounce of myself, and whatever record, whatever stats are on there, just know that that's every inch of myself. Every bit I had went into whatever those completion percentages, those interception and touchdowns. That's all I had. And then,
I'm looking at him right now. Unfortunately, 2 and 14 seasons, 3 and 16 as a starter. Even though wins are not a quarterback stat, I'll die on that hill. 11 touchdowns, 21 interceptions. Like, to me, Steve, your lasting memory of a Tampa Bay Buccaneer is a game in Green Bay. You get tackled. There's snow everywhere, and that summed up to me the Tampa Bay experience. Like, it could not get any worse than getting sacked with a face full of snow, getting the snot beat out of us in Green Bay.
When you said 3 and 16, I'm like, I got 3. That's a miracle. That's amazing. No, we were in Green Bay. I don't want to belabor this story, but it's my first road game of my NFL career. We go to Green Bay. We land in a blizzard. They close the airport. We're the last plane in. We get a snowplow that takes us over to the hotel. We're in the hotel Saturday night blizzard. It's just howling. I can hear, how you're laying in bed. You're like, you look outside. It's sideways. You're like, okay, this is my first start. Okay, this is
not good.
So we wake up. It's a bigger blizzard. Bigger. One of the all-time blizzards in Green Bay history. You can look it up. You couldn't get to the game. No cars. Everything was impassable. They put a plow in front of our bus to get us to the stadium. It's the lowest attended game, not because it was the Bucs, the lowest attended game in Lambeau history, because you had to ski there. You had to snowmobile there. So they had there's 5,000 people that could snowmobile there, and that's how it was. We get to the game. The equipment manager forgot the winter gear. It's still sitting on the tarmac somewhere.
That's why you're a bad organization. You're going to Green Bay in a blizzard, and you don't bring the winter gear.
So the big crate, the big bin that had the winter gear. So everyone was like, I wore my suit pants. Like, you had to wear something underneath. You could freeze to death, right?
Yeah.
And then I remember Lehman Bennett came in, about an hour before the game, he's like, "Hey fellas, warm-ups are optional." You
That's
can
the head
go
coach,
out.
by the way. That's the head coach at that time.
Head coach. You can go out if you want to. Otherwise, you can stay in. What did everybody choose to do? Stay in. I went out, and I remember they had piled the snow for every 5 yards. So it was like Edwin Moses. You had to do the hurdles of 50. Like if you're going to run, you had to like jump over the pile of snow. And anyway, I'm belaboring it, but we were in white, of course, all white. I remember being under center and looking out, and the snow was hitting my eyes, and I was like, I can see the green. Plenty of green. I see no white. Yeah. And so I'll tell you one last thing, two things quickly. I couldn't complete a pass. I was like, how are we going to ever, I remember James Wilder was in the huddle. I go, James, I'm going to drop back over my dead body. I'm going to be the first quarterback in NFL history that doesn't complete a pass in an NFL game. I didn't know the stat, but I figured that there was not anyone that never been 0 for 10 or something. So I said, James, jump in front of me. I'm going to shovel you the ball, and at least I'll be 1 for something. Right. And so James did it. We did it, and I was very excited. And then I got sacked once by Tim Harris. Yeah. And Tim Harris plowed me into one of those 5-yard things, a pile of snow, and it got stuck in my helmet. And I literally couldn't breathe, Trey. I was like, I couldn't breathe the bottom of the pile. And so you start scrambling. I can't breathe. I started scratching at my face, trying to be able to breathe. And Tim Harris goes, "What's your problem, bro?" And I'm like, "Bro, I couldn't breathe." He goes, "Oh,
oxygen.
Sorry about that.
Oxygen is my problem.
O2. We had an O2 deprivation. So that was my first start in the NFL. Welcome.
Yeah. All right, so here's the deal. Okay, so you had to struggle through a 41% completion in high school. Then you go to BYU. You're 35th on the depth chart. You get there. Then you finally make it to the NFL, and it's just a shit show, for lack of a better term. When you heard the Niners were trading for you, were you elated, or were you like, now I got to fight for a job behind Joe Montana?
No. Okay, so there's a pretty good story there quickly. They traded me to the St. Louis Cardinals. But I had developed a relationship with Hugh Kovaros, the owner, who had told me 3 months or 4 months before that I was his quarterback for life. He goes, "Look, we're going to try to build a team around you." Until Ray Perkins showed up as the coach and hated lefties. And he told me, "I hate lefties and I hate scramblers." I was like, okay. So
this should go well for me.
It's going well. So anyway, they traded me to the St. Louis Cardinals, and they called me. I was home in Utah in the offseason. And I called you, Colbrowse, right? Mr. Colbrowse, please, I look, we don't have a great team here. I'm willing to build it with you. I'm willing to, but don't send me to the Cardinals. I mean, it's like, that's just another death wish. And he called and called it off.
Wow.
He called me back.
I did not know that story.
He called it off. And, cause Ray Perkins had called me and said, "Wow, congratulations. You're a St. Louis Cardinal." And I'm like,
"Thanks, Ray."
So I called Mr. Colbrowse, and he called me back and said, "Steve, you have a week. I told you you're my guy for life. I'm going to stand by, if you're going to trade you, the new coach, I can't overrule him, but, I'll get you a place that you want to be." And that's where we started the recruiting process with Bill Walsh called, and I met him at BYU. And he said, "Joe Montana's had his second back surgery, Steve." And because I told him, "Look, much as I want to come to the 49ers, I can't just watch. I'd rather go to law school. Right. I'm not going to come watch." And he says, "You're not going to have to watch. And Joe's had his second back surgery. I think you can do this." And he, I don't know what he saw out of the Tampa Bay film or the LA Express film. I mean, there were some highlights. But anyway, I decided to do it. And I just remember the first practice in Redwood City before we moved to Santa Clara in 1987. First practice, first day of mini camp. I go out early. I'm warming up. And then I've never met Joe Montana in my life. And out comes Joe Montana. My first thought, Trey, the first second he ran out, I'm like, he doesn't look real hurt.
Exactly.
That was like that. Took me 5 seconds to go, he doesn't look real hurt. And I went to Bill. I go, "Bill, he looks, I thought you said he had 2 back surgeries. He looks great." Bill, he gave me the, sorry,
Who knew?
Who knew? So that was that began. But I got to give Bill credit. He threw us together.
He did.
I mean, he threw us together, and he demanded things from me. And I mean, I learned how to be, and I watched Joe, and I just off we went for the 4-year odyssey.
Yeah, and it took 4 years. I mean, there were some bumps in the road between the two of you. And you understand why, because you wanted to play, and he had no interest in giving up the thing that he had done.
Fact, we did a commercial, we did a Visa commercial recently where it was awkward. We were trying to handshake. Everything was awkward because our whole experience, we never had a crossword. We never argued. We were really 2 swell guys that just were thrown together, but we were competitive. And it was awkward every second of every day. Always awkward.
So that took 4 years for that sort of to resolve itself. And so you're finally the guy. And then out of nowhere, they decide to bring in Steve Bono and bench you. It seems like every one step forward, 2 steps back the entire way.
It was, I will tell you, in the middle of those 4 years, 3 or 4 times, it looked like, I'd gotten my way out of there. I was trying to get back out of there because I knew that I got to play. I mean, I'm 26 years old. I got to play. And I felt like I'd played some really tough football. And you know how I've learned it. I get it. I know it, and I can do it. And then I watched Joe do it. I'm like, okay, now I really get it because I've seen the best. I can go do this. And now I needed to go find a place to do it. And we just 2 or 3 times, it was on draft day, it looked like the Raiders. Another day, it looked like the Vikings. And it just never happened. And then finally, when Joe's arm got hurt in 91, that got me the chance to kind of take control. But as you know, I'll tell you one quick story about that. We're like 3-4. We've been 3 Super Bowls in a row. Now I take over and we're 3-4 wandering around. And every human being in the Bay Area would be able to say, what's wrong with the 49ers?
Steve Young.
Steve Young.
Yeah.
And so on above the fold of the San Francisco Chronicle, the Gulf War had broken out, and the headline was Gulf War, it's Steve Young's fault. Like that was the headline. And so it's super funny, right? Super funny, but
unless it's your name.
I'm living there. I have to go to the Brits. And so look, nothing's simple. Like you skipped over the fact of replacing Jim McMahon, who had 85 NCAA records.
Correct.
In college, right? So I get to be All-American. So it's like I famously was second in the Heisman where I got a sweatsuit. They handed Mike Rozier the trophy, and they handed me a sweatsuit. I remember the Heisman sweatsuit. Weighed like 60 pounds.
Was it velour at least or velvet?
No,
something?
It was one of those classic 1910 jobs. Mr. Olympus. Like if it got wet, it would. You couldn't carry it. It'd be too heavy. But anyway, so now I'm 91 trying to take over, and it was not easy. And I had a couple of really seminal moments in 91 where I gained some Yoda-like perspective. From a couple of people that really changed my perspective, and it got me in the right frame of mind, and that's when it all took off. 92 MVP, 93, 94, 95, I just took off. So
and so 92 you won the first of your 2 MVPs. The only problem there is right before the season, I argue that the most significant shift in the power of the 90s happened when the San Francisco 49ers, for reasons I will never understand, traded Charles Haley to Jimmy Johnson and the Dallas Cowboys. I'm like, what are you doing? That is your rival.
Honestly, there's 32 teams, and 31 of them, well, not us, but 30 of them were fine. Yeah. Really, Charles could go anywhere, but you give them the Cowboys when they're really on the rise. And
right on the cusp.
It was a 3-year. You talk about an odyssey playing those guys. That was the best football team, other than our football team, ever put together. Like it was like the Cowboys in 92, 93, 94, and even 95. I mean, it was one of the all-time teams. And Charles Haley going there was just to play Charles in championship games was so I want to scratch my eyeball out, Trey. I mean, it was like, you got to be kidding me. I got to play the Cowboys and Charles Haley. But again, I mean, my dad, he's a long way. It's just like it's a constant thing. But living it out, I think what happened in 91 is I realized how grateful I should be to be able to have had the experience I had and to be where I was, instead of belaboring and bemoaning all of the things that you can easily play the victim. Like playing the victim is so easy as a human being. It's like you can snap into victimization like in a second. And if you live there, like I was thinking I was going to live there, because all these things you just described. I mean, how many things can a guy overcome? How many bad breaks can you get? Finally, I realized, you know what? Forget all that. The truth is, I'm a lucky son of a gun to be doing what I'm doing in this spot. Go take it. Go fight. Like you're here. Go. And I think that was, that was a big moment in 91 where I kind of grew out of that hole I dug myself, feeling bad for all the crap that I've been through. Like, who cares?
Yeah. All right, let's take one final break here, come back, because finally there is a happy ending to Steve Young's career. Because you had to figure that out. Stay with us. We're coming right back. Hey everybody, Trey Wingo here to tell you that NFL Sunday Ticket.tv is like having front row seats to every out-of-market game all season long, every Sunday afternoon, no matter where you live. That is a lot of football. And guess what? This season you get more football than ever before. 18 weeks of NFL glory right there in front of you, streamed to your favorite device. Just picture this scenario with me. You sit down, you put your feet up, kick back, eat snacks, and watch an insane amount of NFL football every Sunday afternoon. So make your seat a front row seat and catch every second of your favorite players and your favorite teams every Sunday afternoon. Now, to see if you're eligible for this, make sure you go to NFLSundayTicket.tv/SundayReady and stream every NFL Sunday Ticket game this season to follow your favorite team, no matter where you live. Use promo code WINGO2021 at checkout to get 15% off. Exclusive discounts also available. Select international games excluded. Eligibility restrictions do apply. Compatible device required. Data charges may apply. Week 3 of football's in the books, and now it's time to review the tape and get ready for Week 4 with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. To kick off another action-packed weekend, DraftKings is giving new customers $150 instantly when they bet $1 on any football game. And listen up, because you don't want to miss this deal. Head to the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and place a bet of $1 on any Week 4 game to receive $150 in free bets instantly. The Sportsbook is not available in your state yet. Don't worry. DraftKings still has huge cash prizes up for grabs all season long with their daily fantasy contests. DraftKings is giving all new customers a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes with their first deposit. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code WINGO to receive $150 in free bets when you place a bet of $1 on any football game. That's promo code WINGO this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 or older, New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only, minimum $5 deposit and $1 wager required. One per customer, and restrictions do apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. And if you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or in Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT. All right, back with Steve Young here. So again, you finally get the starting job. You lose back-to-back years to the Cowboys and Charles Haley in the NFC Championship game. And then in '94, when we still think potentially this is going to be the year, you lose to the Eagles 40-8 at Candlestick, and George Seifert benches you, and you were furious. He said he wanted to protect you, but you knew how that looked.
So, George, remember, Bill had thrown Joe and I together in '87, '88 pretty effectively.
Yeah.
Like I played a quarter of each season, almost 4 or 5 games. He started me a couple times when Joe could have played. Like, it was amazing. And then when George took over in '89, it was like, no more of that. And so George and I had a strained relationship. We never argued with each other, but I felt like he didn't give me much of a chance, right? Yeah. And so that went away, and we played well, and everything was great. But in '94, when he came to the sidelines, we were getting beat by the Eagles. We were terrible that day. And he says, "Hey, look, Jerry and I were sitting there. Jerry Rice and I were sitting together on the bench. He goes, I'm going to take you 2 out, and then we're going to start putting the guys in. We're going to call this one." I'm like, "Fine, that's fine." So we go out to start the next series, and out comes Elvis Grbac alone. Like, and it just triggered something in me, Trey. Yeah. I mean, I'm not a guy that gets in many fights. I've never hit anybody with a closed fist in my life. I hit a kid in 9th grade, which was after my buddy Dave Van Borken with an open fist. I hit him like this, Yeah. But I'm not, I'm competitive and tough, but I'm not somebody that's but I broke, and I wanted to fight him right there.
Yeah.
I was like,
I remember seeing it. I remember seeing it. Yeah.
I am done. I'm done with all of it. And the idea that you're now at this moment going to try to point the finger at me, you bastard, no way. And so I went to the sidelines, and I didn't stop. I was going to fight him. And I was saying things that most human beings would have turned and at least engaged me. And I give George a tremendous amount of credit for just looking forward and not turning around, because people around us knew that something had gone haywire with Steve Young. Steve Young had lost his mind. And even after the game, I said, if he doesn't come confront me, I'm not leaving this stadium. I'm going to tell you. And George got his stuff and just left. He left me hanging right there. We got over it. It was fine. But I just remember it was a cathartic moment in some ways, Trey, because I just got sick of it, And
well, it's funny because that could have been the worst And it turns out, I think that was the last game you guys lost.
We won like 9 in a row, yeah.
You won it out, and of course you play the Cowboys at Candlestick, third year in a row, NFC Championship game. You beat them 38-28, and that was the Super Bowl every year. Like, that was a year, that was in a string where I think the NFC won 14 straight Super Bowls.
I think you're right.
Whoever won the NFC was going to win the Super Bowl.
Right.
So there's the infamous shot of you on the sidelines after throwing 6 touchdown passes against the Chargers of Gary Plummer taking the monkey off your back. But the Cowboys game was really the actual monkey, right?
Well, look, I did not appreciate the Chargers, even though we won 49-26. The Chargers were better than you realized.
Yeah.
Well,
the first play of the game, you hit Jerry Rice with like a 75-yard touchdown.
Even that night playing them, I'm like, ooh, these guys are tougher than I thought. But the Cowboys were the Kings, and the Cowboys were. I mean, how are you gonna figure out how to beat them? And we had to kind of figure it out for the third year in a row. And so it was a huge thing. I mean, I think we beat the best team that ever got put together almost and kept them from three-peating, just like the Giants did to us in 1990.
So when you finally beat the Cowboys and you had the record, which still stands, 6 touchdown passes in the Super Bowl MVP. And when did you finally think, my God, people are going to stop doubting me? Like, was that the moment? What else can I do?
The second that I came off the field at the end of the third quarter in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I went over and picked up the phone to tell Mike Shanahan, great game, we did it. Remember that famous story when he yelled at me?
Yeah,
He's like, get back on the field. I told you 8 touchdowns, and we got plenty of time. Before the game, he had told me when we were kind of going through it. I call him Mike, let's go through it again, and Shanahan. So he was down there going through it again. And I'm like, Mike, I think we got it. He goes, you know what? You do have it. And you're going to throw 8 touchdowns. Who's coach says that in the Super Bowl, you're going to throw 8 touchdowns. And so when they pulled me out because we were up so much, he was pissed. He's like, get back out there. We got to get 8 touchdowns. But at that moment, I knew that my life was different. Yeah. And it was different in a really positive, great way. And, because that's, in San Francisco, you can win MVPs all you want. I've proven that. That doesn't matter. Yeah, right. You have to go to the Super Bowl and win.
It's funny. Your story is such about perseverance, and it seems like in today's NFL, there is no patience, right? There's no patience by organizations, and sometimes there's not a lot of patience by players. So knowing what you went through to become a first ballot Hall of Famer and retire at the time having the highest passer rating ever a single season, which has since been lapped because the game is completely different from when you played it. What would you say to organizations and players about the persistence factor and how important that is?
Well, I would say that you just described the game has changed so much because of the rule changes and the safety factor.
Correct.
They try to make it safer, and in what they've done is they've made it college-like, because there used to be a professionalism. You had a full-time job year-round, and the sophistication of the game was off the charts because you were professional. Now they limit the time for coaches and players. It's college, and so there's not going to be patience because it's college football. You have a spring ball for a couple OTAs and a summer camp, and you go play ball. And last year in COVID, you didn't have a summer camp, and you go play ball. And so coaches don't have a choice, and organizations in many ways, Trey, don't have a way to have that kind of patience, because the game is now. Like if a kid comes out of college, hey, let's say Lamar Jackson comes out of Louisville and they say, let's just run the Louisville offense. Well, 20 years ago, that was not an option.
Right.
Lamar had to learn the pro game. Now, just run Kyler Murray, just run Oklahoma's offense, and you can have success. So the idea that there's going to be someone that, in many ways, if you don't show right away that you can play pro/college football, granted, faster athletes and faster game, but still the sophistication is not there. You're gonna. I say it, as much as I love the persistence and people should be patient. I say if I see 6 games from somebody and I just don't feel like this guy's going to figure it out, I think in the game today you should be able to in 6 games to show something.
Yeah. Well, listen, it is complete. It's just funny to list all the highest passer rating seasons now. I mean, Nick Foles is up there. You know what I mean? That would not have happened in the 90s. And nothing against Nick, and he's a great guy, but let's just be realistic about it. You know what I mean?
Well, I'm very jealous. I saw Tom Brady, and I was like, Tom, what's it like? Because he played played for 20 years, so he knows what it was when he was a rookie, and he knows what it is today. He goes, Steve, no one patrols the middle of the field, because that used to be, death zone in the middle of the field. No one controls the middle of the field. The flats are open, and no one can touch me.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's the triple crown right there. Like, you can't be stopped.
That's why he's playing at 44.
It is exactly why he's playing, and why I'm jealous, because you can do it, because you don't have the physical challenge anymore. People are open. That's his point. It's like in the pros, no one was ever open. Jerry Rice was kind of open, but no one was open. Now everybody's open. So it's super fun to think about. I'm not jealous. What am I? I'm not bitter.
Wistful.
I just
wistful.
wish. Yeah,
you're wistful.
Yeah, it's fun time to play.
So let's put a pin on this here then. If someone years from now will look up Steve Young and see the things that he accomplished, what would you want that person to know about what it took for you to get there?
Yeah, that's a good question, Trey. That's a Greenwich special there. I think more than anything that you can have a lot of stuff work against you, or things lined up against you, but there is a place where you're just not going to stop climbing. I'm just maybe they think me as somebody just the bulldog on the pant leg of life. Like and then to me it's not just surviving, it's thriving. It's tough things happen, things don't work out perfectly, but not only did I survive it, I thrived, and I think that's what I want people to remember. I answer my own question. I would want people to see the excellence. A guy that before his time could throw it and run around, and and when you talk about efficiency, was he a good passer? Like, let the numbers speak themselves, and so I think that's how I'd want to be remembered, is just an excellent quarterback who could run.
Well, listen, I think the excellent quarterback part was answered when, for a guy who didn't start a lot of those 15 seasons, was a first ballot Hall of Famer. So I think that question has been answered, my friend. He is the Admiral of the Avenue, the Troubadour of Todd's Point, and, of course, the Emir of Eastern Junior High School. None other than my high school quarterback, Steve Young. Hey, buddy, Trey, always a pleasure.
What a pleasure. What a pleasure.
So thanks to Steve Young, my Greenwich compadre, for joining me. Always good to catch up with him, and so proud of the things he's done in his career to become a first ballot Hall of Famer. We're just about wrapped up with season 4 of Half Forgotten History, but before we do that, we've got a special bonus episode coming up for you tomorrow. It's another Bourbon Time episode with longtime NFL linebacker Takeo Spikes. Takeo on the list of potential Hall of Famers for 2022, so congratulations to him. And he has one thing on his football resume that you probably don't know about, but you need to know about. That's coming up next with Takeo Spikes. This episode of Half Forgotten History is brought to you by Starbucks Triple Shot Energy Extra Strength Coffee Beverage in a Can. What gives you your energy? Find your Starbucks Triple Shot Energy online or at your local store.